Hello, welcome back. I'm with Jeremy Yasnik, the CEO of Copart Minerals. Jeremy, good to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Start things off, what's the company?
So Copart has actually been around for quite some time. The company, as it stands right now, we took over management of it in 2021, and I actually have three companies. I'm the founder of Metals Group, and we actually have three companies that have projects right side by side each other. So Benchmark Metals, we started Benchmark Metals in 2019, had a $6 million market cap. It's literally they're side by each. Now it has a market cap of $120 million. So we started that 2019 to now. The company right beside it is Thesis Gold. We started that one in 2020, and it had a market cap of $6 million. Now it has a market cap of just under $100 million. And then the project that's right beside that one is called Copart, and it wasn't actually even our company. It was, we made basically these three discoveries right side by each, and there's a reason, why they developed like this. But anyway, we walked in the market, and I literally, it was a little 8-cent stock and 10 million shares outstanding. I went and purchased almost 19% of the company out of the open market, drove the market cap of the company from under $1 million to like 25 million bucks by my own buying. And my whole team came in behind me too. And there's a story why these three projects were left for 20, 25 years and were not advanced. And the real story is that this was uncut drill core. This was all done, the original work on these projects was done in the 1980s and early 90s, and they never even cut the drill core. They would take little samples that were really high grade, and they left the rest of it sitting in the box uncut, and all three of the projects.
So before we go, who was the previous operator that was doing this? And then,
well, it was
25 years ago.
So each one of these companies, Benchmark, had this original property called Lawyer's Property, and it was owned by a bunch of private individuals. It actually was in production back in the 1980s under the Cheney Gold Mine. Mm-hmm. Thesis Gold, which was the next company up, I can't remember, it was a conglomerate of a bunch of people that owned that. And then, of course, the Williams property, I don't know who the actual original owners of it was, but it was in Copart when we took over the company. And we just became aggressive buyers of stock out of the open market, and then the management just turned it over to us.
Well, what is obviously that was a couple of years ago, was it? When you started buying?
2021.
2021, okay, so last year.
Yeah.
What does the corporate structure look like now? How many shares outstanding? How much cash in the bank, burn rate, that sort of thing?
So we don't let any grass grow under our feet. We move very, very quickly on our projects and aggressively. So when the company started off, we bought our shares in the company. Then we did a financing in the company. We did a drill program and did some work on the property. We found where that big bulk tonnage type deposit was. We came up with great drill results last year. And then I also used the stock as currency to go acquire a whole other company. So from 2021, we took over the company, we recapitalized the company, did a drill program, and I bought another company. And so now the company has just over 50 million shares outstanding, approximately a $25 million market cap right now. And we have these projects in northern British Columbia, but now we also have three projects in Nevada.
Okay. Let's talk about, you were talking about how the Brixton and Thesis and Copart, this sort of one mineralized structure. Am I getting that right? Or?
No, they're each different. They are different, although they're side beside each other. And up in northern British Columbia, there's people talk about the golden horseshoe, or not a golden triangle. There's no golden triangle. There's no triangle, But what there is that there's a basin. There's a big basin, and all of the large mineralized deposits are at the edge of this basin. And so you've got stuff like Red Chris Mine, and you've got the Bruce Jack Mine, and they're all on the western side. On the eastern side is this area called the Tutagon. It's flatter area, but it's this big structure, and then all the deposits are kind of along the edge of that zone. And so we're on the western side of it, or rather the eastern side of it. And so, there's Benchmark, Thesis, and then Copart. It's right there.
So focusing on Copart, where are we with you've just said that you've done a drill campaign already. Are the assays back? What do they look like?
So when we originally, I'll go back to the story of the unassayed drill core. We found that there was this very large, we weren't able to do any publishing of it because we couldn't find where the actual drill hole was collared, and there's no chain of command for the drill core, and quite frankly, someone could have dropped it off from some other site. So when we assayed it and found those big bulk tonnage type deposit that was there, we didn't know, we couldn't publish it. So we did some soil geochem and geophysics, and we actually found where this deposit was from. And we did a drill program into it this year, and we got, one of the holes was just getting into the zone. It was 50 meters of 2.2 grams per ton, but the very end of the hole was 10 meters of 4.2 grams. And we were just getting into
Is this from
zone.
surface?
No.
What sort of depths are we looking at?
We're looking at depths of, starting at around 100 meters of mineralization starts. So we have, this zone is, 500 meters wide, 2 kilometers long. We plan on going and drilling the daylights out of that next year, moving our drill permits so now we can actually drill right in the zone that we want to drill in. But I would say that the lowest hanging fruit that we have right now is not the project in northern British Columbia. I know exactly what it takes to drill out a deposit up there because we just did it with both Benchmark and Thesis, and we're in the process of doing that. The lowest hanging fruit that we have is actually these projects that we bought in Nevada, the company that we acquired in Nevada. And the one project that is, I think, an amazing project it's called Kinsley Mountain. And so Kinsley Mountain, there was drilling done in 2000 right to 2014. And I believe that they rushed to put out a resource before doing sufficient drilling to fully understand the deposit. And it's interesting because there's a zone in this, I don't want to get into too much technical stuff because people's eyeballs roll back in their head, but there is a zone that starts at approximately 250 meters, goes down to about 310 meters. It's kind of sloping a little bit. And all the drill holes in there are spectacular in that zone. They're 40 meters of 18 grams, which is unbelievable for Nevada. 30 meters of 15 grams. There's 5 meters of 46 grams. Like, it's unbelievable in this zone. But yet they put out a resource that's 2.6 grams per ton.
How?
When every drill hole in that zone is like 4 times greater than that. And so you think, why on earth did that happen? Well, it happened as a result of them not doing sufficient infill drilling. So if you have a drill hole over here and a drill hole over here and nothing in between, you're allowed to use the mineralization around that hole, but the stuff in between, even though we can't guarantee that there's mineralization between them, but statistically, there's going to be something between them. And so they did all this drilling without doing sufficient infill drilling, and so that's what brought the grade down, is that there's all these zero values between the holes. That's the lowest hanging fruit I've ever seen in my life. Just go poke some holes between existing known drill holes that are spectacular, and it should raise the grade of the deposit. I'm not making any promises about what the grade is going to get to, but it should raise the grade significantly higher. When I think the worst drill hole was 8.5 grams in that zone. So, and a lot of them are 15 to 20 grams.
What is the distance between the holes that and what's the cohesion of the ore body as you understand it? I mean, is this, because if it's veiny, then maybe there isn't as much in between, right? But what's the current geological understanding of the area?
You would have to talk to our geologist to get that. I'm not a geologist, and so I don't really. I can say that the spacing that they could use was approximately 5 meters around each hole, and I believe that the majority of the holes are actually spaced more than 40 meters apart from each other. And so there isn't just 1 or 2 holes into this zone that they tried to create a resource from. There's probably like 30 or 40 holes, and some of them have tested the outside edges of this zone, and so they've gone like through zero value. So we don't think that this particular zone is going to get much bigger, but we think that if it can go from 2.6 grams to maybe 5 grams or whatever, then without finding any more mineralization, just putting in holes, infill holes into this area, it should raise the grade significantly and therefore the ounces.
And therefore the ounces, yeah. I guess what's the plan in terms of actually drilling this out? Because obviously, how much cash did you mention that you had in the bank at the moment, and how are you? Obviously, you've got 2 priorities. You've got 2 things here that seem pretty special. You've got something that's 2 grams at 50 meters, which when you said that, I thought, well, surely you're just going to go focus on that, right? And then you've introduced this new asset. How are you prioritizing these? How are you spending your money, and how are you going to actually go about bringing value to this?
So for us, it's all about time of year. So that's the other reason that we acquired these assets in Nevada, is so that we can work all year round. And we actually have 2 advanced projects in Nevada. One of them is Kinsley Mountain, the one I mentioned, but we also have acquired in that acquisition another project called Bolo. So we're doing we have approximately $500,000 in the bank right now, which is not that much. But even in really difficult markets, we're able to raise money. And I'm one of the founders, as I mentioned, of all of those other companies, Benchmark, Thesis, Copart, Altiplano, a bunch of them. So they're all under Metals Group. And under Metals Group, we get financed. When other people are struggling to get financed, we get financed. We just did a financing with Benchmark, just to put it into perspective. We just did a financing with Benchmark Metals where we wanted to raise $15 million, and we raised over 20 into this market, and that was just closed a couple of weeks ago. So we've just to answer more specifically answer your question, I put out a financing on Friday. We wanted to raise a couple $1 million, and it's not even Monday in Canada right now, and we probably have 1.7 million of it already spoken for, and I'm sure that by the end of Monday, we'll probably have over 2 million done. So I'm pretty certain we'll be able to raise the money that we need to raise in order to get these done. So I'd like to do a small drill program to test our theory on our projects in Nevada, so both Bolo and Kinsley. Didn't talk too much about Bolo, but we need to spend about $500,000 on Bolo. We'll spend the rest on Kinsley. And then I think at a higher valuation, I will raise more money in flow-through, so in the springtime we can go and advance the project in northern British Columbia. So it's kind of where we are.
You mentioned the Metals Group, and you've got these 3 companies underneath them. You're saying obviously through Metals Group you're able to raise money even when other companies potentially aren't. How's the structure looking? Are these 3 companies a subsidiary of Metals Group, and are you raising money through Metals Group, or are you raising them through Copart?
So each of Metals Group companies is a standalone company. Has its Metals Group is actually a private company. It's not publicly traded. It's owned privately by myself, and I actually have 3 other partners. And so that's a private company. But under the umbrella of Metals Group, which is our technical team. So what we've done is we've assembled a spectacular technical team. If you look at our board of advisors and our board of directors for all of these companies, you'd wonder how on earth, can a junior have this quality of people? Guys with their PhDs, multiple master's degrees in every facet, whether it's geology, whether it's structural geology, metallurgy, whatever it is. We have some of the smartest guys in the business working for us, and they're on staff. But that's because we have 8 companies. And so they don't work for us all the time in one company. And you would lose all these guys anyway. You got these guys with multiple master's degrees and PhDs, you'd lose them if you had just one company. They'd get bored, and it didn't matter how much money you paid them, they'd get bored and they'd leave, right? So in order to challenge them, we have 8 companies, and they can dedicate their time to whatever company needs their attention and time at the moment.
Okay. So you were talking about strategy there in terms of you've got, like I said, you've got the one in British Columbia, which to me sounds very exciting because you've sort of already demonstrated a path there with Benchmark and Thesis, and their valuations are significantly higher, around 4 times higher than the valuation of Copart.
That's great.
So just wanted to reiterate really what the strategy is. So you're going to be drilling the Nevada assets over the spring?
Actually, over the winter.
Over the winter?
We're actually starting a drill program there in the next couple of days.
Brilliant. Okay. Yes. And when are you expecting results back from that drill campaign?
That's always the big question, right?
Yeah.
When are results coming? I don't think that there's a lot of stuff in the labs right now, so I don't expect there to be a lot of delays at this time of year. So, and also I think a lot of companies are hurting, so there's cutbacks on drill programs. So I don't think the turnaround is going to be that difficult in any lab that we would use. So drills will be turning in the next few weeks. We're going to start with the Bolo program, and then we'll swing those drill rigs over to Kinsley. Mm-hmm. And I would imagine over January and February, when probably nobody's producing any news at that point, we will be coming up with drill results at that point, talking about, and like I said, we're not doing risky drilling. We're going right into known zones of mineralization. So next spring, I will likely do another larger raise of capital, as I mentioned, and then we'll go back up to northern British Columbia. Hopefully the snow level, won't be so bad, and we'll be able to get in there in the spring and get drilling on that.
Good. And you're right, we haven't touched on Bolo as much, but it seems like this could be a catalyst for you to raise at a higher valuation, or that might be the target. What's going on at Bolo, just briefly? Okay,
so Bolo is, we need to spend just over $500,000 US on that project to earn our 51% interest. But Bolo is an oxide on surface gold deposit, very good grades. There's drill holes in excess of 120 meters of, I think, 1.22 grams per ton oxide gold on surface. Spectacular for Nevada, heap leachable deposit. This project, we actually think we're being a little tight-lipped about it, because we actually think that the previous owners of this and operators of the project possibly have drilled it in the wrong direction. And one of the things about Nevada, it's very dry, everyone knows it, it's desert. And so a lot of times they assume that there's a structure where they think that this structure is what's hosting the gold. But because it's always been drilled with RC drilling, reverse circulation drilling, they never really have a good look at the core. So last year, when I was, all the activity that I told you about that we did with the company, last year I lent New Placer Dome, before we even bought the company, money to do what's called an oriented core drill program. So it's not just core rock that's going to come out, but the geologists and the drillers have to be very careful when they pull the rock out that they don't tilt it or turn it. And they mark the top of the core. So you can actually see,
where the veins are.
You can see which vein system or which fault system is hosting the actual mineralization. And so in this particular case, there's a main fault that runs one way and another fault that runs the other way. And so we cross-cut both of these faults with oriented core drilling, which is a pain in the butt really to do in Nevada, because you have to truck water for miles to bring it to the drill rig. And there's not a lot of water in Nevada, so you really have to want to do this, and it's expensive drilling. So we did this oriented core drilling, and we actually think that we've solved an issue, and we'll test our theory again here in the next few weeks.
Brilliant. Looking a bit further forward, you've got these 3 companies as part of the metals group.
We actually have about 8.
8?
There's about 8 companies that are part of metals group, yes.
what I'm trying to work out is that obviously these are all exploration coming into development type companies. As you progress these, obviously we're seeing a lot of spin-outs at the moment with like sort of McEwen and Mawson and a lot of other companies. So even we were talking to another group, Gold Mining Inc., that's doing a spin-out soon. And it seems like a lot of people are unlocking value for a spin-out. But then once you get to that stage where you're entering production, it's all about M&A, getting more and more ounces in. Is sort of looking at this at a top level at the metals group level, as these companies start going through the development pipeline, are you envisioning some internal M&A between these companies?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So once we develop these projects along, we develop them as if we're going to put them into production, obviously. But if you look at the history, my business partner, I'm very proud to work with John Williamson. John Williamson was a founder of the Discovery Group. So John Robbins and John Williamson were founders of the Discovery Group. That's approximately 27 public companies that they built up and sold off and sold off and sold off, and they just kept doing this. So when John and I started working together in, I think, 2013 or 14, we have the same, that's why we have this unbelievable technical team. And, you know, we've assembled these wonderful guys that we work with, and gals that we work with, to enable us to advance these projects and do really, really good technical work to the point where majors, when they look at the work that we've done, they have confidence in what we're doing because they can look at the data and it jives well with what the project looks like. And so we do very good technical work, and we do it in such a way that it's competent, or it's majors would have confidence in acquiring us, and that's why we do that. But we threaten with every one of our companies to produce, and we have. I don't ever want to do it again, but we do. We actually have one of our first companies. It's called Altiplano Metals, and we actually put it into production. You know, we not only drilled it, but we actually put it into production. It's been producing now profitably for years. So,
well, I was thinking more along the lines of, obviously, M&A from majors is what most of the junior market ultimately decides, right? I was sort of looking at more of, you've got these 8 companies, could you not consolidate the 8 into, once you're all reaching that production phase, to create your own mid-tier production company?
Yeah, there is a possibility, you know, particularly when you're not the first to have asked this question. There's lots that say, particularly Benchmark and Thesis, those 2 companies are side by each. You know, why aren't you combining them? Well, the reason we didn't combine them is because we didn't find them at the same time. We actually found Benchmark first and then started developing it out, and then the market capitalization of Benchmark went up, and then we started negotiating to acquire the project that became Thesis. It's called the Ranch, and you know, you would have had a war between, you know, the Benchmark shareholders would have said, why are you paying so much for that asset? You know, so it was easier to just put it into a different company. And then if a third party was to come and buy us out, buy Benchmark or buy Thesis or Copar's project up in northern British Columbia, they can choose what they're going to pay for it. And then it's not us saying, here's what we think the value is, because it's all the same management, really. Benchmark, Thesis, and Copart, the management is all, you know, similar management, and so it, you know, from a third party or a shareholder that's come in to invest into one of these companies, they're gonna say, why are we at the same value or less value than that other company? Whereas if it's a third party that's buying each of these companies, it's easier for us to do that. So there will be some acquisitions and some mergers of stuff, which is exactly what I did with Copart. Our stock went from 8 cents to over $1, and I used the stock as currency to acquire New Placer Dome. So there's going to be stuff like that happens, and believe me, I will continue to look for other assets for sure that I think are well undervalued. But as far as us combining our own companies, that becomes an issue, you know.
What I like, you've got high grade, you've got pretty good exploration leverage, you seem to be finding the right sort of zones. I think you've got a pretty exciting 12 months, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
You too.